All right, welcome to another episode of Badass Clinician Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Natty, with my good friend Chestin, talking about scaling businesses, especially in the performance rehab space. I'll go here, just pass on the knowledge that we have so that way you guys can just start taking some action and implement it so that way you can scale your business, get some time back, and also help more patients, help more PTs so that way everyone can live a more fulfilling life. Correct?
That's it, man. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Look, I said the other day, our goal is within the next 5 years to help 100 clinics hit $1 million plus per year and 1,000 in the next 10 years. That's our goal. So whether we do that through the free information we provide here, whether it's through, our Badass Business Blueprint program that we have, or just, whatever, just helping out here and there, like that's our goal, is to help 100 in the next 5 years and 1,000 over the next 10 years to reach those goals, because again, there's a huge need for it in the marketplace. This. There's a need in the marketplace for quality, healthcare professionals that promote an active lifestyle and help people live, longer, better, do better at their jobs, be more active, overall. So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about, I guess, the elephant in the room, especially for me, of how to deal with negative criticism, especially bad review, because we just got our first one.
Out of how many?
It's this. Out of like 164.
Yeah, out of a ton. So, now did you go home and cry?
No, but
that night?
No, definitely, because I saw this coming.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So just for you guys listening, I'm pulling up the review so I can just
and let me say this to
and this is
let me say this. It's bound to happen, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
like it's a good thing. Like, you guys are human. Everything is not going to always go perfect. You're not always going to be everybody's cup of tea. People have different expectations and different wants. And like what we've talked about in the past, like, you have your culture and some people just don't fit that culture, and that's okay. And so, these things are bound to happen. Yeah. So, you didn't lose sleep over it. Good on you. It's definitely doesn't serve any purpose to get all worked up about it, because if anything, it's an opportunity to promote you and your brand and how you guys operate. And it's going to help then filter out all those wrong patients, those people that just aren't a fit for you culturally.
Dude, honestly, it was a great learning experience. And the way I look at it is, people have said worse things to me to my face. So like you can't try to, build something big, create big impact without, pissing some people off. Right. And the coolest, I'll read the review, right? So we got this review 2 weeks ago. It was like, it said, this is a practice for people in their teens and 20s. If you are over 40 and you have a different recovery timelines, the same methods will not apply. For me, I couldn't sleep for weeks after dry needling mishap and dealing with pain. Definitely worse off after going to myokinetics. And, obviously, I saw this coming a mile away, and the context behind is that this patient came to us through a referral channel where we kind of fast tracked the whole process for him to get him in. And in hindsight, this is why I always mention, like, the people you let into your clinic, your company, your culture, especially patient, is just as important to people that you hire. Just because there's a system and process in place that we put there to help us vet and wean out people who are going to be a good fit or not, right? And the touch point that we created, especially our like intake questionnaire, is robust. Even our intake form that people have to fill out is also robust. Now, if people were able to go through all those things, they would understand, hey, this is the kind of place it's going to be. It's going to be serious. It's going to require a lot of commitment, for myself to get better, and also, communication with the PT. This is one of those cases where none of that happened. And because of that, there were definitely miscommunication and also different expectation. Right. And, when I read that, I just say, a body is a body, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40, your 60, whatever it is, a joint is a joint. Now, the difference is healing timeline and all of that stuff, which we're not going to get into. What I learned about this was, the silver lining of all this was how strong my culture was, because as soon as we got that review, everyone was visibly upset in the company, which I was really happy
Yeah.
for, because in the past we have had people who were just like, oh nope, this has nothing to do with me. I'm not in part of that department, so doesn't impact me, right? But with the culture that we have now, people take ownership over that because it was a reflection of them and the company they work
Yes.
for,
Yep.
right? And again, when you get to see things coming down the pipeline, it's going to happen. You can kind of prepare for it, right? And for me, I was not caught off guard, and if anything, as soon as I saw it, I was like, great. I already wrote a review in my head a couple of weeks ago, and I know exactly how to respond to it and all of that stuff. And another thing too, just some context, is that when someone is unhappy or dissatisfied with the service you provide, you always want to create an opportunity for you to course correct this thing. So the one thing you and I implemented here at MyoConnects was create an NPS score, right? And right, so Net Promoter Scores, which goes out to any of our eval as soon as they come in, which also get them to rate from like 0 to 10, how satisfied are they with their first experience. Anything that's below an 8, I get notification, my clinic director get notification, my ops manager get notification, and we call that person immediately, right? We give them an option to stay anonymous or put their name there. So that way we have an opportunity to course correct. We had an incident with a patient in the past where, because of that, they wrote us a lengthy email of what would the experience like and why it was not up to standard. As soon as we got that, we had an emergency team meeting. We called the patient, and then we course corrected immediately.
Yep.
Right? Because if people are here to get better, they want to communicate that of why their needs are not met. Now, some instances, people might not communicate that and might just send you some sort of passive aggressive, email. Within that case, I personally took it, and then I also call the individual to make sure, like, hey, what's going on? Why this, and this happening? I'm not going to get into the detail, but long story short, I spoke to this individual for 45 minutes, try to figure out what's going on. And after that conversation, I realized, well, the issue is consistency, and the issue is expectation, right? So, I always say to my team, and I make sure the team echo to everybody we work with, is that at the end of the day, we are a guy. We're not an miracle worker. We cannot fix things in 1 or 2 sessions, right? Because our goal is to get people to thrive on their own terms, and therefore they have to make some lifestyle changes and sacrifices, right? You and I love treats. That doesn't mean it's good for us to eat it.
Yeah.
Right. So having this, kind of feedback really forced us to have a conversation with the team. Like, hey guys, if you have any yellow flag on the call, on the intake, you got to let us know. Put that in a summary. So that way, we know what to look for. Right. And we talked about that with our hiring podcast last week. And
absolutely.
And what's good about, Google is that if you have enough, way more than enough 5-star reviews, which for us is like 163, and we have 1 bad review, the average of a star is still 5.
Yeah. And
right.
It's going to take a lot of negative reviews to bump that down. So
exactly. And people also look at how you respond to the negative review.
Yes, absolutely. So there's really 2 aspects to this that I want to touch on. I want to make sure we get, we focus on. Number 1 is internally. So I wore my good shirt for a reason, because it's the good old Jocko Willink clip. If you've never seen it, Google or go to YouTube and search for Jocko Willink good, because he talks about all these negative things that could happen. When he was in the SEAL teams, his guys would come to him and complain about, the weather's bad, or we didn't get this equipment, or, the timeline's been, whatever the case is. And his answer was always good, because it's an opportunity to get better. And so what you got, the culture that you've implemented is that when something like this happens, like you said, number 1, your team now is disappointed. They're not overwhelmed, but they take accountability for their part in that process. And so you as a team then go back and look at your systems, your intake process, the questions you have, making sure you're identifying those potential flags. So going forward, you can improve your process internally. And then on the flip side, well, also on that note, I think one thing you guys do really well is that healthcare, specifically in this case, injury rehab, performance rehab, it's a partnership. Like, it's not just you guys doing something. The patient has to do their part as well. And so making sure that expectation is set up front about what is to be expected based on the recommended treatment plan that you've given, and making sure that they're on board with that. And so again, that just goes back to your intake process, which you guys are very thorough and very detailed about going through. But then also when things come up, when issues come up like this, you guys are good at going back and looking at your systems, your processes, your scripts, and adjusting those as needed to go forward. On the outside looking in, a bad review like this is not a bad thing. Like, yes, this one experience might reflect poorly on you guys, but the way you responded publicly, not just privately where you called the guy and you had this conversation, but I think publicly says more about you than it does about it speaks to your brand. It speaks to who you are as a business, and people can see that on the outside looking in. I know for me personally, when I'm considering making a big purchase, like, I'll go look at the reviews. I don't look at the 5-star reviews. I look at the 1 and 2-star reviews to see what do they say about it. Like, what was the issue? What was the problem? But then also at the same time, I'm looking to see how that business has responded, because, you know, I've seen 1-star reviews where someone's just complaining, you know, it was a horrible experience, this, that, and the other. But then the business owner comes in and explains why they had a bad experience and what it was that caused that bad experience for them. And more times than not, the person that's complaining just likes to complain. So, you know, by you as a business owner coming in and explaining the situation. Now, again, with HIPAA, you can't disclose too much, but you can certainly disclose, you know, how the conversation went and what some of the big issues were and things like that. Me seeing that as someone considering a PT clinic, I'm going to see that and say, okay, these guys are serious about their job. They understand that it's a partnership, that it's a two-way street, and that if I don't do my part, I'm not going to get the results that they're promising me. You know, so again, it's an opportunity to showcase your brand, showcase your culture, and showcase the things that you guys take serious when it comes to helping people recover from their injuries, improve their performance, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, man? Well, you and I are men of faith, and if you read, you know, the Bible, every time, you know, Jesus preaches, there's always met with criticism, right? And I think the way he handled criticism, you know, from anyone was just with, kind of like just hold the ground, right? In what you believe in, and then just explain that to other people, because he knew he was not going to convert people that are just not willing to be converted. But there's other people that are listening to the conversation that say, oh, wow, okay, I get where that's coming from, right? So that was my mindset based on that. And you mentioned that. So I used to go to this dentist place, and, you know, didn't have the best experience. I voiced out my concern, not much overcorrection or anything. And then I was like, you know what, let me go look at some reviews, see what other people are saying. And there were multiple 1-star review, and the response of the business owner in that dentist clinic was, this is not true, we're going to sue you. In every single 1-star. I'm like, first off, you know that's not true. Yeah. You can't just sue people for negative review. And if I see enough of that, and that is their go-to response, I just say, oh, I should never been a patient here in the first place.
Yeah. And that's where your response carries more weight than their actual review does. Now, if you actually did make a mistake, like if it really was your fault, like, it's okay to admit that and say, yep, you know what, you're right, we screwed this up. You know, we didn't get back to you soon enough, or, you know, insurance was filed in, whatever the case may be. Like, just own it. Like, you know, you'll solve so many more problems by just admitting your mistakes, recognizing where you can do better, and then just acknowledging that, and then just committing to doing better going forward. But when you come back with a response like that, that's defensive, you know, that passes the blame, that doesn't take ownership for your part in the process, that just reflects negatively on you, and it's going to leave a bad taste, and people aren't going to, as a result, choose you.
Yeah. I like that you brought up Jocko, right? Because I had an opportunity to see him speaking live on stage last year as Funnel Hacking Live. And, you know, in his book, Extreme Ownership, he's talked about giving people autonomy to operate within their confined space, right? So he called this decentralized commands. right? So, in the beginning, I thought like, decentralized command. I mean, everyone just have their free range to do whatever they want. And then what he clarified during that talk was, no, you give them,
Boundaries.
autonomy within their
Yep.
boundary that they can operate on. So as I'm reflecting on this, I say, we got to keep, decentralized command to the people who does, the front end touch point. Give them, autonomy to say, hey, based on my conversation with this person, here are some red flag that I've seen. Here's some obstacle that I'm gonna see. Here's where I think this is gonna be a pivoting point where they're gonna make decision to come with us or not coming with us.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there you have a discussion with your team, say, okay, based on that, how are we gonna handle this? Is this the right fit for us? Yes or no? And then you give your team an opportunity to ask the clinician, the therapist, the ops manager to say, hey, I'm dealing with this. My gut's telling me this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's important because good people want that. They want that responsibility. They want that flexibility, so to speak. And so again, this goes back to what we talk about, having systems and processes in place. If someone in that role understands that they can be a decision maker, like they're the gatekeeper, so to speak. And if they see red flags, like there are certain things that you as a business owner can say, okay, these are hard nose. These are up to you to decide. These are the green flag, so giving them that flexibility, that responsibility is going to create a better experience for everybody, for the patient coming through the door, for the person working on your team, for you as a business, because then you as a business owner, you're not sucked into every single decision, but you've delegated that responsibility to that person, again, within the bounds and the framework of the responsibilities that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and again, like silver lining to this whole thing was it create a good conversation.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I was on to a business owner last week, and the one thing that I picked up on was he was willing to go the extra mile for everybody, especially his patient, but he was also being taken advantage of at the same time.
Yep.
And that tends to happen a lot, especially if you're starting your own, clinic and you want to do right by everybody. Yep. But then there's also, a fine line and a balance between, am I doing right by them or are they just plain taking advantage of me?
Yeah. And that's where having, I keep going back to previous conversations we've had, but that goes back to having that vision, having those systems and processes clearly mapped out, those touch points or those milestones along that patient journey, the expectations for each of those, and knowing what the ultimate objective for the overall process is, but also those milestones, those touch points, and then just having those hard criteria, like those hard boundaries around what's acceptable and what isn't, what is the outcome, that we're trying to achieve, and just being very clear on that. And defining that up front is critical to, as a business owner, being able to ascend up that staircase of responsibility. Because when you can clearly define those things, again, you can pull yourself out of making those decisions because you've empowered your team based on the guidelines that you've given them. Now, it may not all happen up front. Like it may be a work in progress, but the sooner you can get there, the sooner you can start defining those frameworks and those boundaries, the sooner you can get on to doing more valuable things, within the business itself, as opposed to making the small decisions, the minutia, so to speak, of is this patient a good fit for us or not? In this case.
Yeah.
So just having that really clear vision and understanding what you're trying to accomplish and what needs to happen along the way empowers you as a business owner, again, to be able to ascend up that staircase and take on, more and more responsibility, more valuable, actions within the business.
And by giving people ownership, right, within boundaries, you actually slowly get to raise the average of the team, right? I had a talk with my leadership team and say, like, this company will be as good as the people who are in it and the people who are willing to raise the average. Because at the end of the average is either going up or going down, right? You can't have total autonomy and like time freedom if you're stuck putting out fire. You need to start training your team to start putting out fire and be obsessed with the standard in some way more than you are, right? Alex Hormozi talk about this all the time, is that in the beginning, everyone, any business owner would say, I'm good at everything. And then that's a false belief, because you are good at everything because you needed to be good at everything. But now you hire someone and they have more time than you, and if they're just obsessed with being just as good, if not better than you, they're gonna be better than you because they have more time and they have more reps to do those tasks. Right?
As a business owner, you have to do everything. So you have to be good at everything. But your good might be right here, and someone you bring into a position or a role to assume those responsibilities, hopefully is up here, because you can alleviate, you can take those tasks off your plate and let them do it, and this is all they're focused on. So I would hope that they're this much better than you are at this. And so that should be the goal in whatever position, whatever responsibilities, you're trying to fill, is their good is significantly better than your good, because that's all they have to focus on. Like, that's what their primary responsibility is, where you are spread across all these different responsibilities that you have as a business owner.
Yeah. And that's why going back to the why and the mission is important, right? I think as a true business owner, you have to communicate the why and the mission all the time. And that's why the standard keep going up and up. Because if you already meet your standard, that means your goal is just too small.
Exactly.
Right. So you have to reassess your why and your mission. Exactly. So if it's too small and it only requires you to get, a B+ grade, then you have to aim up higher. Right. Even like Jordan Peterson talked about this, is like where the direction in life where you are going is based on where you aim at. If you have nowhere high to aim at, that's where you're going to be.
Or as soon as you hit that goal, set another goal. Like, set your sights higher. Like, don't be content with where you're at. Happy but not content. Be happy that you reach that, but not content that you're not where you could be. And so you want to set those sights higher and continually improve the process. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen overnight. It's never going to happen as quick as you want. But as you continually improve your processes, improve your messaging, improve your culture, et cetera, improve your team, things are going to gradually improve, and you have to continue to raise that bar for what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I this past Sunday, I had an opportunity to speak to around like 50 to 60 PT students. I was talking about ACL rehab in a performance context, and surprisingly, some of the question afterward was less about rehab, but more about mindset. And some of the things they asked, like my favorite question they asked was like, how do you slowly start developing, you're following your brand and all of that stuff. And I say, dude, it's just start with treating the person in front of you and be obsessed at getting them better. And understand that it's going to take time, it's going to take work, it's going to take effort that you're not being paid for off hours, but then those effort is the input, and the output is you being better at clinically, and also a better person, and you're able to lead the team even more, right? So every time we have a meeting, especially a clinical meeting, I'm always like looking at different ways that we can do better, right? So if I'm doing that, and I run this business, and I work more hours than anyone, and I'm still looking to keep myself to a high standard, like that's going to say a lot to what people need to do in order to thrive in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the mindset that you have to have as a successful business owner, is you've got to continually be trying to improve yourself. You've got to lead the way in that self-improvement, because the team's going to follow.
Yeah.
If you're talking about these things, but you yourself aren't acting on it, it's going to fall on deaf ears. They're going to see that your actions don't match up with your words, and they're going to follow suit.
Yeah. And the last thing before we finish up, it's a quick one today, is you constantly have to give yourself permission to say these things, like to say your mission, because most of the time 99% of the time people will think you're nuts or what you're trying to do, right? We're trying to impact 1 million households within the next 3 years. People are going to say it's crazy. How are you going to do it? Right. So rather than the how, you focus on the why. Like going back to Friedrich Nietzsche, it's like a man who has a strong why can bear almost any how. You have a strong why, you can then figure out the how, different vehicle and all of that stuff. And that's why, like, a group like you and I exist, right? To help them figure out the how, as long as the why is worth it. Right. And if the why is just money, you're going to make money, but at some point, that's all you're going to focus on. And ultimately, it's not going to lead you to the path that you like.
I would argue that money is the primary objective is a very empty objective. Like you'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many rich, like super rich people that are unhappy, because their life doesn't really have a purpose outside of making money. So, having that why is critical. And I would say too, having that vision and constantly reminding yourself of that vision. I went through a coaching program a couple of years ago where they had us write out like our mission statement, and we had to read it like every morning. And it was so powerful just to remind myself every day of what I was trying to accomplish, the objectives I was trying to achieve, the vision that I had for myself, for my business, for my future, and so constantly reminding yourself and talking about that is going to ingrain that in your mindset. And so that it becomes a lens through which you make decisions constantly throughout your day, at work with your employees, at home with your family, what you're eating for dinner, how you spend your free time, all that stuff starts to seep in if you constantly keep that vision in your mind, and it's there always in front of you.
Yeah. All right, man. I think that's where we're going to end it. It's a quick, fiery one. Appreciate supporting, reaching out. If you like this podcast, share with your friends, and then let's hop on a call. And then we'll see you guys next week once again.